As a fourth-generation entrepreneur and business owner, I know the grit and grind that it takes to run a business. With ChingonSA, we're capturing stories from other local business owners and community leaders to highlight them for you, our querido community of San Anto. From the culture, for the culture. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of ChingonSA. I'm Luis. I'm the host of the show, and just wanted to say thanks again, everybody, for subscribing, for liking, for sharing these episodes. Helps us reach a broader audience, of like-minded individuals who want to hear some really cool things that are going on in the San Antonio community. I'm super excited about today's guest. We've got a good friend of mine, Jennifer Smith, and we're going to be talking about what her organization is doing to directly impact families in the San Antonio community who've had an opportunity to foster and adopt kiddos in our community. So super excited about that. Just a little bit about Jennifer before we get into the conversation. Jennifer was born and raised in Odessa, Texas, went to Texas Tech University for undergrad and came to San Antonio by way of UTSA Health Science Center for her master's in physical therapy. So by trade, you're a physical therapist.
I am, yes.
Yeah. And she's been in San Antonio in the Bernie area for 19 years now, married with a couple kiddos, 4 kiddos actually, right?
4 kiddos, yes.
And you've adopted a couple into your family, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So excited to hear about that. Back in 2005, while she was raising kids and being a wife to her husband, and as a physical therapist, she read an article about a young girl whose life was wrecked by abuse and neglect and subsequent moves through multiple homes in the foster care system. After a few months of prayerful discussion with foster families, her and her husband Kyle accepted the call to serve as foster parents in 2006. That led her into a journey of foster care and adoption.
Yes.
After serving in Grace Point Church's foster and adoption ministry for 5 years, Grace Point as a community has raised over 75 kids and adopted 27 into those families. So that's awesome. What an exciting movement to be a part of, I think.
Yeah, it was definitely not part of the plan, but that's kind of how God moves a lot of times.
Yeah, for sure. From that, South Texas Alliance for Orphans, kind of grew, and you now lead as the executive director of South Texas Alliance for Orphans. So let's dive in. Let's talk about that.
Let's do it.
What was the sort of catalyst? Because I know you spent some time kind of volunteering at Grace Point in the kids ministry, and
right.
I think even having a leadership role in the kids ministry there, and then eventually into the foster and adopt program, right?
Yeah, so it was a weird, I came down here for PT school, never intending on staying in San Antonio. Too big of a city for me. Was just coming down to get my master's, but I fell in love with the city. Very much small town, like they say, it's the biggest small town that you'll live in. And so we just, fell in love with the community. My husband loved his job. We found Grace Point and found that, just church family there. And so we ended up staying and then started having kids. I had 2 girls, biological daughters who, we are the quintessential American family. 2 upward trajectory careers, 2 healthy kids. And then I read that newspaper article about the young lady who that was not her story at all. Yeah. And it wasn't going to ever be her story, more than likely. And it really just made me angry and frustrated and heartbroken. And I was like, somebody should do something. And only the way that the Holy Spirit does. He was like, yeah, you should. And I was like, wait, whoa. We weren't talking about me. Somebody else should do something, right. Like a lot of things. And in the Christian world, it sounds good as long as you're supporting somebody else doing it. But it's a whole different story when God calls you to do it. Yeah. And so we prayed about it for almost 6 months and really just could not get away from the fact that that's where God was leading our family. And so by the end of the year, we were in foster classes. And the lady that was teaching us to be foster parents, she was agnostic, so didn't share our faith at all. But Linda looked more like Jesus than a lot of the Christians I knew. She had fostered over 200 teen girls.
Wow.
And just had this passion to serve the vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I said, Linda, you should come to my church. You should come and tell them about what's going on in the foster care system. Because for me, growing up in the church, I'd never heard a word about the foster care system. I'd heard about orphans overseas, but never the ones that were in my neighborhood, going to school with my kids. And I said, you should come to my church and tell them about it. And she's like, oh, I've gone to the churches before. Nobody shows up at my meetings. And that was like the gut punch that lit this little fire of like, you know what? You're right. I've never heard a sermon about this from any of the pulpits I've sat, in front of. And so that was really the genesis of what eventually became the Alliance, was like, where is the church in this conversation? And on a lot of ways, the state had given them the Heisman. The state was like, no, church, separation of church and state. We have the foster care program. And by and large, the church was like, okay, cool. You handle that. That looks real messy.
Yeah.
And so that was the beginning there at Grace Point. Was we started talking to leadership there at the time. Jeff Harris was a pastor. Mike Shira was there. Melody McCrae. There was Jamie Capadonna. So many great leaders there. And I just started making noise about it. And they listened. And they were like, yeah. Eventually we all got together, came up with a plan. And they were like, yeah, if this is a problem, we know it's God's heart, so it has to be Grace Point's heart. And so we're going to do something about it. And so Jeff preached a sermon. I had 30 little folders, had never publicly spoken in my life, and 100 people showed up.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, So I just told basically my journey and what I knew up until that point about foster care, and the ministry blew up. And we had close to 24 families that started the process to become foster families. And over the next 5 years, it just incrementally grew and support people that were not fostering, but they were supporting. So it was just an incredible season of the church awakening to the foster crisis. And from that, other foster families that I knew that were not at Grace Point, they started asking questions like, hey, how are y'all doing that? How did you get leadership on board? What does that look like? I'm like, I don't know. Like, here's what we did. It wasn't like some strategic plan I went to school for or anything. So it just grew from there, and little other churches kind of started their own thing. And then eventually this lady from First Presbyterian, Teresa McCaleb, she'd heard about me. I'd heard about her. She was an adoptee herself. And she said, I've been praying about doing something like this at First Pres for 2 years. She's like, what would it take for what you're doing to become a nonprofit? And I was like, well, money and wisdom. I don't know how to run a nonprofit, and I don't have the money to launch it. She's like, well, we do that here at First Presbyterian. We've launched multiple nonprofits, and come and pitch to our missions board, and they'll probably fund you.
So First Pres had a organization or a group of people that were helping to launch nonprofits doing local things.
So I don't know that necessarily they had a group. They just have a local missions board, and that's kind of what they were very good at, like seeing a problem, trying to find, is there an organization doing this or not? And if there's not, okay, how can we find the leaders and people that are doing something in this space and get behind them and launch these parachurch ministries? Because no one church can take on the foster care crisis. And that's what I think attracted Teresa to what I was doing, was that it was not, it was Grace Point was the model, but it was nothing that no other church could do. It was just a model that Grace Point happened to adopt, but we could, if we built it out in a nonprofit, any church could adopt it.
So during this time that you're like, having this conversation with her, are you still working full time or?
Yeah. So, well, I was working full time, and then eventually, as we started fostering, I went from full time to part time, and part time, I switched from outpatient orthopedics, which was my love, to home health, which was more flexible because I had between 2 to 6 children in my house at any one time who had different appointments and needs, and so did home health for a while. And then as the nonprofit kind of took off, got legs underneath it, became something that could, be a thing, then I actually quit being a physical therapist and kind of, like I said, it's almost like you've heard the analogy of cut an anchor. I cut anchor, and I was like, all right, God, I'm going to full send it here. And I'm trusting that you're going to be with me in this. And so far, he's never failed me.
So when was that? What year did the Alliance start?
So 2012 was when we kind of officially kicked off at Grace Point, when all of that happened there. 2016, 2017 was when I met Teresa. And then we kind of started the talks of that and talks with other leaders in the city. And then in 2018, we got our own 501c3. We were a DBA under SAMI, San Antonio Marriage Initiative, for a long time, Carl Caton. And that's one of the things, like, I mean, I really can't. I had no plans for this. This was not in my life plan. I had no idea this is where the Lord was going to take me. And I just was maybe dumb enough or courageous enough to say yes. And so it was just one yes after another. But God just kept bringing all these super amazing people. I mean, I had Bob Dugas, who introduces me to Harvey Najum and Tullis Wells at Kronkowski, who don't fund organizations like mine. But I got to go talk to them, and they're like, hey, well, we love it. Write an LOI. And I'm like, okay, go to the parking lot. What is an LOI? I didn't even know what that was. Like, so it was just these series of events where the Lord just kept like, just say yes. Like, just keep saying yes. And that's where things just kept growing and taking off to where we are today, which is 136 churches doing something in this space. Wow. We're in not only Bexar County, but most of the counties that touch it. And we've become, you know, as an organization, just incredible people that God's brought to the team and become a leader in the space of people looking at us because, one, we have street cred because almost everybody on my team is foster adopt parent or a CASA advocate. And we have a passion and an experience to talk to all the parties and get them all. We're deep roots in the church, deep roots in understanding the foster crisis, and can kind of bridge that gap, which is what I think the enemy used for a long time, was this gap of like, oh no, the church doesn't want you involved, or the state doesn't want you involved, church. And the church was like, okay, because that looks real messy and we don't understand it. And so that's just kind of how things function. Yeah. And we got to come in that middle and be like, no.
Bridge the gap.
Actually, God has a really, like, you cannot find a book in the Bible that doesn't talk about God's heart for kids, the vulnerable, the disenfranchised. You can't argue that point. Now, you can say, I'm just not going to do anything about it. You can abdicate your role. Sure. But you can't say that Jesus doesn't care about children and families impacted by foster care. Yeah. And there's a million ways to get involved. We have churches with 30 people that are doing stuff. We have churches with 15,000 people that are doing stuff. Wow. So there's really, the menu of options is extensive because the need is so extensive. Yeah.
I know you guys have a bunch of programs that work specifically. So you guys are essentially a parallel program to adoption agencies, to CPS, to CASA, even like other nonprofits that are doing things. So talk a little bit about the programs, each of the programs that you guys kind of help launch and you know, help families with and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so I like to, when I do informational meetings or meet with people, I like to give the analogy of a river. So unfortunately, we're on the backside of a really horrible situation with the river here in San Antonio with the flooding of the Guadalupe. But if you think about that situation right now, and you and me and another friend were standing at the banks of the Guadalupe, and literally what happened just a couple weeks ago, there are people floating down the river. Somebody's going to jump in and start saving those people and trying to pull them out. We're going to miss some, and they're going to float down the river. And so hopefully the next one of us runs down the river and tries to catch the ones that we've missed. Right. And hopefully the third one of us starts running upriver, in this case to that fork in the road or that Camp Mystic, and figures out, why are there kids in the river? And so really the Alliance approach to the foster care crisis is a three-pronged attack. How do we prevent kids from entering the system? How do we serve the ones that are already in the middle of the river? And how do we catch these youth that are aging out on the backside and spitting out the end of this river with nobody, and who have a very high likelihood of having children and repeating the cycle? Yeah. And so that's kind of our three-pronged attack. So if you think about it on the prevention side, how do we go upstream, which is the Alliance Prevention Network? So caseworkers who are seeing these families on the worst chapter of their lives. You know, somebody's addicted to drugs, there's domestic violence. Those are kind of the main things. They get a phone call because kids are being abused and neglected. They go into the home, and their goal is to try to figure out, how do we stabilize this family? Is it too dangerous and we need to remove the kids, or can we do something to support this family unit and keep them together? So if there is something that they can do, like there's a situation like we just need to figure this out, then they can put in a request through our Alliance Prevention Network and say, hey, we have
the caseworker you're talking about.
The caseworker. Yeah. We have kids. We had this other day, we had a single mom who has 10 children. She has 10 kids, got housing, has no beds. They're all sleeping on the floor with a blanket.
Oh my gosh.
And so she's like, I need, this mom needs help. And so she puts in that request, and we have a network of churches who have all raised their hand. They've been trained. They understand what they're doing, and they can go and meet with mom. They drop off, assemble the bunk beds, set up the beds, get her cribs, car seats, whatever it needs. And that's piece one. But that's not the goal. The goal is that this mom now has a community of people that she can call on.
Right.
So the tangible stuff, literally anybody can do. Walmart could decide to do this.
Right.
That doesn't change lives. Transactional stuff doesn't change lives or legacies. Relationship does. And so that's the difference with the Alliance Prevention Network is our churches and our response team members, their goal is to build a relationship with that mom because she didn't end up with 10 kids by herself because she didn't have stuff.
Right. she
She ended up with 10 kids by herself because she didn't have community.
Yeah.
And that's what most people are lacking right now.
Interesting.
And so that's really the goal is to heal that deeper wound of I don't have anybody to call when the wheels fall off.
Yeah.
So that's the prevention side. We have, and the other thing that we'll probably hit on later is we have a lot of programs for those relative caregivers, which is Kin Mart, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. So we help relative caregivers get their kiddos ready for school with free school supplies that they get to shop for. We have ChingonSA in December with Vinny Vanzetta and Kin's, with his organization and ChingonSA. So they get to same thing, but the caregivers come alone and they get to shop for Christmas gifts.
Yeah.
They get them wrapped. They take them home. They put them under the tree. Grandma's the hero, not the random stranger that donated them. So we have a lot of programs to wrap around them, trauma-informed care. Then that next bucket is the kids that are already in. So the caseworker went and they're like, there's no way these kids can stay here safely. So we're going to remove them and put them in foster care. So that's what I did. That's what a lot of families have done is you get a phone call on a Tuesday and they're like, hey, will you take a 9-month-old? And you're like, sure. And by 3:00 in the afternoon, you have a brand new family member who you know nothing about, but you're like, you know what? We'll figure this out.
Yeah.
And so you take in a kid because mom or dad or mom and dad have things that are going on that right now they can't safely take care of their children. Right. And so they need to get those things figured out. And the goal is that they get those things figured out. And that's what CPS or Child Protective Services, that's their goal, is to help mom get out of a domestic violent relationship, dad figure out how to manage his anger, get off drugs, get housing, whatever the thing is that's keeping them from being stable, or get mental health services.
Right.
Whatever it is that's keeping them from being able to be parents, they want to help them. Yeah. Now, they can engage and move forward and get their kids back. They can be like, throw them the bird and do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And that's, in a lot of, unfortunately, in about 50% of the cases, kids end up needing to be adopted because whatever is going on with mom and dad typically stems from their own childhood trauma.
Wow.
And they just can't. They can't get off the drugs. They can't get away from that guy who beats them up. They don't have any family support, whatever it is. And so they usually, there's a 50-50 shot. And so that is where we help churches understand today, 6 kids are going to be removed. Every day, 6 kids, on average, 6 kids are going to be removed for abuse and neglect.
Wow.
Where are they going?
Yeah.
And right now, I got a text the other day. There was 3 kids under the age of 3 that got put on an airplane and flown to El Paso because we don't have enough homes for them. Like that's the state of foster care in San Antonio, which claims to be a family-friendly, family-focused community, which I think in a large part it is. But there's this dark segment that we just don't even talk about or haven't figured out how to build enough capacity for.
Yeah.
But you think about it, we're a city of 2 million people. There's only 3,000 kids. There's 3,000 kids in foster care. That's too much. But compared to
just in San Antonio or in Texas or
in San Antonio and like the surrounding,
Gotcha.
Bear County is definitely the worst offender. But if you package it out, Bear County and the counties that touch it, over 3,000 kids in foster care every year. But we have a city of 2 million people.
Yeah.
We have a city with 1,200 Christian churches. Like the math works.
Yeah.
And that's part of our, as the Alliance is going into churches and being like, hey, can you get 1 or 2 families, support the heck out of them and walk with them as they walk alongside kids that are hurting, families that are healing. And we start getting to the point where we have a bench of foster families and not an airplane taking our kids to El Paso.
Right. You guys do a ton of work also with youth that are coming out of the system.
Yeah.
That's a fairly new program for you guys. I'd love to hear more about that as well.
Yeah. So that leads us into the kids that we missed in this river analogy that have spit out the back end. So A lot of foster families are like 9-month-old, yes. 17-year-old,
No,
not so much. And so a lot of the teenagers, once they get to 13, 14, there's very few foster families that'll say yes to them. And so they end up in residential group homes, which is just, 7 or 8 boys in a house with workers that come in and take care of them on 8-hour shifts.
Right.
They don't build a relationship. They're not learning how to be men. They're not learning how to be professionals. They're just keeping them safe from each other and from the world.
Yeah.
Trying to anyways.
Right.
And so these kids turn 18 and the state of Texas hands them a check and they're like, good luck. We're done being your parent. You're an adult now.
One check for the rest of their lives. Like,
well, they're done.
Yeah.
You're an adult. So they're done. You're done in child welfare.
Right.
Now, the youth can choose to stay in longer, but most of them, by the time they get to 18, they're like,
they're ready to get out.
Screw you.
Yeah.
I want to be on my own. I'm tired of you telling me what to do, what not to do. So some of them take advantage of it. Some of them don't. We have an incredible program here at UTSA where the kids can go to college because anybody that has been in foster care, most people that have been in foster care get free in-state college tuition. They can go to, now that doesn't cover room and it doesn't cover board. However, for these youth that age out, UTSA has stepped up and they will house them. They have social workers that support them and they can go there and stay in the dorms, get the food, go to college and be on a path to work themselves out of it. However, less than 3% of them take advantage of it.
That's what I was just about to ask. What is the percentage of kids that actually? Because I mean, obviously, just if your family dynamic was different, I don't want to use the term normal, but if it was different, not every single one of those kids wants to go to college anyway, right?
No.
So you're saying that only 3% of the kids that are in foster care want to go to college,
take advantage
of it. Mm-hmm. And there may be more out there that probably don't know that even these programs exist, right?
100%. Well, and you got to think. So if you're 18, you just got kicked out of, or you chose to leave wherever you were living because you didn't want to stay in foster care anymore. What are your main priorities? Your main priority college or finding a place to sleep tonight?
Yeah.
Is your main priority, how do I fill out this application to get into school? Or where am I going to eat dinner tonight?
Right.
They're in survival mode.
Right.
And so until their basic needs are met, they can't even think about tomorrow.
That makes
We've
sense.
met with so many of these kids and you're like, what do you want to be? What do you want to do? They have zero vision for their life because they've just been surviving for so long. And they're like, I just want a place to live, somewhere to eat, and somebody to know who I am.
Yeah.
Somebody to care. A lot of these kids are like, if I went to the hospital, nobody's coming. I have nobody in my life.
Yeah.
And so that's this most recent program, which is called Don't Go Alone. And it's a mentorship program, but it's a family mentorship program. So instead of one-on-one, it's more of a family because that's what these kids are missing is that family unit, a mom, a dad, siblings, dogs, backyard, barbecues, all the things that are quote unquote typical family activities. So it's a family mentorship. The youth doesn't live with the family. There's no money exchange. It is just a friendship. It's how do you tie a tie? It's how do you do a resume? It's Friday night is pizza night. Make sure you come over. What flavor do you want? Oh, it's your birthday. We're going to celebrate your birthday. How's things going with your girlfriend or boyfriend? It's just that family stuff that so many of us have been blessed with and take for granted that they don't have. We had a young lady who got sick. She's calling her mentor that she met the day before because she has nobody else to call. She was graduating. The only people in the audience were the mentors she met the week before because they just have nobody. And so that's what the Don't Go Alone program is. The goal is to help these youth break the cycle, not be a statistic, not be the 19-year-old, 40 to 60% of boys, by the time they're 19, if they age out of foster care, they'll be in prison.
Wow.
Almost 70% of the girls will be pregnant. You look at sex trafficking, which is a big buzz thing right now, which it should be. Over 76% of the victims of sex trafficking came out of foster care.
Yeah.
So if you don't end the foster crisis, you're never going to end the sex trafficking problem or the prison population overcrowding and even our homeless population. 40% of them spent time in foster care.
Yeah.
So it's such a root cause issue for so many other things that we give money to and we want to solve, but we got to go back and help the 8-year-old who's been abused by the only male figure in his life, and his mom's addicted to drugs, and he doesn't know who's going to take care of him.
Right.
We have to address that 8-year-old, because once he's 38 and fathered 4 more kids,
it's crazy to think that
so much harder.
It's crazy to think that an 8-year-old has to be worried about who's going to take care of them.
Right.
Like I've got an 8-year-old, and I can't imagine, like, that breaks my heart. Just that thought alone, like, if he has to be worried about who's going to take care of him, where he's going to, live, where he's going to be or whatever, that's just, I can't even fathom that.
So then pull that thread. And if you're an 8-year-old who doesn't know where he's going to live, you just got moved to a new family, you got new rules, you got new rhythms, and now you're going to school and your teacher's like, you're behind in math, you're behind in reading, you're falling asleep on the desk. Well, yes, because he's not sleeping at night, because he's waking up because he doesn't know what's going to happen at night, because he knows what happened at night at his other place. And he didn't do his homework because he's still trying to figure out there's so much against these kids that it's a miracle that any of them get out of it and are successful people.
Yeah.
And we've met many of them who have like completely overcome all the odds, and they're incredible humans.
Yeah.
But we can do better.
Sure.
Like, we can do better so that they don't have to worry about bouncing from place to place, that when the worst day of their life happens and they're removed from the people that are supposed to love and protect them the most, there's a up next. Like, there's a family that's like, well, you're going to come here and you're going to stay here as long as you need to stay here. And that the courts and all that can play out and work out. But like, Tuesday you got dinner, Wednesday I'm taking you to school. Like, you have a rhythm that you don't have to worry about all of these things.
Right.
And we'll let that play out.
Yeah. There's so much that there's so much support that these kids need. There's so much support that your organization needs. If you had to pick 3 things that you could identify as how can people get involved to help your organization, to help support the services that you guys are providing to these foster families, to walk alongside them, to introduce you to churches or whatever it is. If you had to pick 3 things, what would those 3 things be that our audience could reach out to you guys and say, hey, I want to do this?
Yeah. I think kind of categorizing them in buckets: time, talent, treasure. So time, if you're like I was in the season of raising 2 toddlers and feeling a burden, then become a foster parent. Like, give your time, give your family, give your heart. This is the thing I always hear from everybody is like, well, I would just love them too much to be a foster parent. I'm like, actually, that's a qualifier, because if you don't love kids, then you're kind of in that classification of a psychopath, and we don't actually want you fostering. So if you love kids and it would break your heart if they leave, qualified.
Yeah.
And so if that's your season, then give your time. Like, give your time, serve for a year, love on a kid for a year. You don't have to control where it plays out. Just give them a space that's theirs for a year with a family who loves them. And you don't have to control the rest of the narrative, but just be there for chapter 13. Yeah. You don't have to be there for all of them. Yeah. Talent, if you are a counselor, a dentist, a doctor, repair cars, spray for bugs, fix roofs, all of those talents can be used for grandparents who are raising their grandkids whose roof is leaking, who have a bug infestation, whose car just broke down, who need trauma-informed counseling. We got a request the other day for a Spanish-speaking counselor. So you can make margin in your business or your profession or your passions for this population, and we can help connect you. If you're not connected with a church that's doing it, we can help connect you with individuals that need that support. And then treasures, if you're like, well, those kind of things don't match for, what the time I have, or my talent doesn't necessarily fit, great. Support, be a sponsor for our gala, cover the cost of a bed for a grandma, cover the cost of a car repair, like be a monthly financial supporter, and just see what God does with all the money that he's entrusted you to have.
Yeah, be a good steward.
Just be a good steward. So those are kind of 3 big buckets. I mean, obviously, we'd love to get more churches involved. So if you're in church leadership, you're connected with church leaders, give us an introduction. Like, we'd love to just come and share the ways that a church can be mobilized in this space. And I know pastors are under a huge amount of pressure. It's not like they're like, you know what, I just don't have anything to do today. Nobody's asked me for anything. Like they get hounded and told they need to, solve all the world's problems.
Right.
But like I said earlier, I feel like foster care is such a root cause of so many of the other things that we see as a community.
Yeah.
And you just can't argue with where God's heart is on this, that we're supposed to be about it. It doesn't have to be some big program, but it can just be an intentional effort of like, we're going to see the grandma that walks in with the 3 kids to our church every Sunday, and we're going to give her a gift card. We're going to check in with her. We're going to, just be intentional about looking for and seeing those people in our community that are already coming.
Yeah.
Or we're going to look outside the walls of our church and look at the people that are living in the neighborhoods around our church and figure out how we can serve those.
Yeah.
And those are all things that we can help churches figure out.
I want to peel back the curtain a little bit and like get into the nitty gritty of the business, right? Because as a nonprofit, you're still a business.
Correct.
So you guys, it sounds to me like you guys experienced rapid growth. How did you manage that? I'm really curious because you don't come from a business management background.
Right.
You came in as a physical therapist, and you were just sort of thrown into the situation. So what was the biggest challenge that you feel like that you've had to overcome over the last 7 years or so?
That's a good question. I think that whole thing of like, I don't have a business background. I've never run it, but I'm very entrepreneurial in gifting.
Okay.
And I think that was one of the things that was the benefit of Grace Point, was they were willing to call out leadership qualities in women, which I had previous churches that, women could sing or rock babies. And that was kind of what we did for the kingdom. And so I think from that standpoint, God, I can look back and see where God was working things out. Like he was putting me in connection and relate with the Jamie Capadanas, the Mike Sharrows of the world, who were like, can see things in people and start calling it out. And so I was put in these positions where I learned a lot of leadership. I didn't have the business acumen, but I knew who I was. I started learning about how I was gifted, which I think is a huge thing that most quote unquote leaders miss. They don't even know themselves enough. And then I was able to learn how to lead other people that were different than me, and the benefits of their bents that are different from mine. And so that has helped with, we have an incredible culture at the Alliance. We have an incredible, everybody has a great passion for it. And so all the business stuff, the nitty gritty, like I hate books. I hate financials. Bless the people that do, but God has brought those people to our team.
Right.
And so I think the biggest thing for me was identifying, like early on I had to do all the things, and it drained me.
Sure. And
I had to understand that I have got to find the people that are good at the things that I'm not good at. So it frees me up to do the things that I am good at.
Yeah.
And so once I learned that, then it was, okay, how do I fund the positions for the people that I know I need, because I'm not good at this and I shouldn't be doing this.
Right.
It was so fun. Like early on, my Beth Ann Jackson's been with me since she's ride or die since day one. And she and I are like laying in the floor of the church, like trying to figure out a budget, just like so overwhelmed. And then we end up bringing Jamie Capadonna onto the team, and she this is like her love language. She's like, gets giddy about it. And Beth Ann and I are like, great, run with it. Like you tell us what you need from us. But it's identifying. I remember one of the biggest things was I was doing all the communications, which I actually enjoy, but that's a full-time gig, right?
Oh yeah.
So I met with a guy, and he's like, we can do this. Here's my proposal. I loved it. Like I was super excited about it, but I had to go and find a grant for it. So I had to go out and write a grant, because I knew that was going to take us from 1.0 to 2.0. And so that was one of those things of like, okay, God, like I know I need this.
But even that, like writing the grant, that's not something that you had any experience in doing. How did you figure that out? What was how did you do that?
So I think my PT background actually helped with grant writing, because grant writing, you have to write goals.
Interesting.
So I already knew how to write goals from my PT background. And so I think I had a leg up in knowing that you need to be able to communicate what they were and what you're going to, once you do your intervention, what you're saying that they're going to be. And so that framework I already had. And so going into grant writing, I knew I'm just painting a picture for these funders to say, this is what the system is. This is what we're going to do. And this is what I think the system will look like on the back end and how it will impact children and families. And so telling the story, like, that wasn't a hard thing because I'd already lived it. But it was more figuring out the game of grants and how all the chess pieces play in that was it. But then again, God brought me Bob Dugas, who knows the game and was like, I'm going to walk you into offices you could never get in otherwise, and we're going to have conversations. And so it was, it's just an incredible journey to see, and all the things that I didn't know. Again, comes back to like, just say yes. Like, and it wasn't like, if you say yes, here's what I'm going to do for you. It was like, just say yes. Yeah. And then I'm going to show you. Right. I'm going to show you. But it was, like with all things, with God, for people that are of faith listening to this, it's that like, take the step that's lit up, but you don't get to see the whole tunnel down the, you don't get to see the whole finish line. You just got to take that next yes.
I don't think it necessarily has any, I don't think it has anything to do with necessarily like faith in God. I think in general, business owners have to have faith, period, right? To just want to take that leap, because there's a lot of times, I remember when I first started out, I don't have a high school diploma. I don't have a college degree. And yet here I am, as a part owner of a huge insurance agency. How did that happen? Right. And so I think a lot of that was being willing to take risks that many others wouldn't necessarily take. Right. But I have a passion for helping people. And I think that sort of was the catalyst for me to take that risk to say, yeah, it's worth it. Yeah. Right. And so I love that about you, that you were willing to take that risk, and your faith in God sort of, kind of helped propel you forward, because otherwise that might not have been the case for you. You might have been like,
I tell people all the time, I'm like, I'm not nice enough to do like literally, if you want to talk to people that I went to high school with, I'm a very competitive person, loved all things sports, they would have, I ran into one of my girl that just kind of casually knew me in high school, but at one of the churches I was at, she was like, I never saw this. Like the fact that I had kids, the fact that I'm raising other people's kids, the fact that I care about all the kids in San Antonio. She's like, so it's definitely, but I have a very high sense of justice, and foster care is very unjust. And so there was just like, natural, it was a perfect marriage of like the thing that I am already naturally passionate about and the thing that seems the most unjust, especially, and for most people. I haven't met anybody who's like, oh yeah, we shouldn't take care of kids who have been abused. I don't know how you could look at, a 2-year-old that comes to you with 5 broken bones and be like,
not my problem.
Not my problem. Yeah. And that's the thing, like even at churches and in meetings I go to, I'm like, if I walked up here with 5 kids, holding a few walking, and was like, hey, none of these kids have places to stay tonight, I guarantee you I would have dozens of families stand up and be like, I'll do it. What do I need to do? Yeah. But when they're just a number, it's a lot harder. That's where on some levels I get jealous of the like ASPCA, because they get to show the little sad dogs that have been beat up and people are like, jump in. But like, that's not, you can't do that to kids. First off, you can't use them as pawns, but it's no less different. Right. We have those kids, and if you knew their stories, it would break your heart, and you would do whatever you needed to protect them. And we've seen that as we come out of this flood in the hill country. People will do, as a people, we still want to take care of each other. For sure. But for for some reason, a flooding of a river, which should move us to action, does not do. When I tell you about 6 kids that are abused today, that doesn't move people in the same way. Yeah. And I guess my guess is that it's because it seems like a problem that's not going to end. Like the flood happened, we're going to rebuild, we're going to fix it, we're going to rebuild. Like there's a beginning, there's an end. And unfortunately for abuse and neglect, short of Jesus coming back, we're not ending that. We live in a broken world with broken people, and abuse is going to continue. But that doesn't mean that those 6 today don't matter. Yeah. That we shouldn't fight for them to have a different version of a story, that they don't get to write their own story. They don't have to be the victims of what other people's stories and their own unhealed trauma. Yeah. I'm curious, kind of looking back over the last, several years, what has been
one lesson that you wished you would have learned way sooner in your kind of, career as an executive director for a nonprofit?
I think one of the biggest lessons that I wish I would have learned earlier was the importance of finding the right people on the right spots on the bus. Like looking not just for the people that are passionate and similar to me, but looking for the people who maybe, because I'm loud and I'll take the hill. But we hired this girl on our team, Brittany Flournoy, and she is pretty much everything opposite of me, and she's incredible. And the work that she does is stuff that I could never do. But I don't think I knew that early on. I was like, bull in the China store. That's all the people I need. Like, let's just go take the hill.
Yeah.
And then as I grew in my leadership and grew in leading people, I realized, no, we just don't need the people running off the boat, charging up the hill. We also need the people doing the comms and going back and helping the people that are hurt, and like all the other gifts and skill sets and the way that other people see the world. Like there's so much value in that. And finding those people to be all the things that God hasn't gifted me to be, but He's gifted them to be. And then we get to where we are right now. We have this incredible team, very diverse gifting, skill sets, and we can run all in our lane and support each other and really make big impact. I mean, we have incredible impact for if you knew how small our team was and how few hours we put into it, the output is insane. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier you guys have an awesome culture. Tell me about that. Like what do you guys all work together? Are you remote? How do you promote that sort of, excellent culture that people want to be a part of?
Yeah, so we are mostly remote. So we have Grace Point has given us their student building most of the week, and we have our team meetings on Tuesday. So that's really the only time we're in person. Yeah. Tuesdays we get together. But from the very beginning, it was very much, I want to know you as a person. I just don't want to know you as an employee. Yeah. It's very much we're working together. We're not like, I don't micromanage in the first place, but that's the culture of, I want to know what were your challenges this week? What are your praises? We do that every week. We pray for each other. We have a text thread that is not business mostly. It's mostly personal, so that all the people on our team know that, we're rolling towards a really hard mission, and we're working really hard at it, but we also care about each person individually. Yeah. And so I think everybody feels that on our team, because they're not just an employee. They're a friend. Yeah. They're a fellow warrior. And a lot of them are doing hard work even in their homes. They got 4, 5, 6 kids, and half of them came out of foster care and have trauma that's playing out in a variety of ways. Yeah. And we support each other when, somebody's out for 2 or 3 weeks because the wheels fell off of something. There's no like, you don't have all the vacation. Like we don't have vacation time. It's just trust based. Like you have a job to do. This is the goal we set for the year. I'm not micromanaging how many hours you work. I'm not micromanaging when you take vacation. This is just the goal you need to get to, and here's the metrics throughout the week. And so it's a very empowering culture of like, there's nobody checking up on you. That's where I've also learned that I have to have people that are very self-motivated. For sure. And they want to get to wherever it is. It's not a job. You can't come to the Alliance and do a job. You have to come because you're passionate about the space. You want to end something, and you have a role to play on this team. And if you're not doing your job, you're letting everybody else down too. And more importantly, you're letting down this huge mission that we all feel called to.
Well, you said something that is very interesting to me. If you're not doing your job, you're letting somebody else down. That sort of mentality for a team is super important. Even though the result output may be individually based, you're still all working towards the same goal.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's super important that, I think people who are on teams or who lead teams remember that.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, like we all have distinct roles and all distinct giftings, right? So we have like Mike Kraft, who's our pastoral engagement. Well, if Mike is not doing his job and connecting with pastors and building relationships with them, then our 4 church engagement ladies don't get in the door most of the time. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the things that I learned, like as a female and starting it out, there's rooms I can't get in because I'm a female. And having
so stupid, by the way.
Listen, that we can do that on another podcast.
Okay, all right. That's not what this is for. You're right.
Mike can get in those rooms, which is great. And when Mike does his job and he gets in those rooms and he builds those relationships, he opens the door for my 4 church engagement team members. And so then they get to have a relationship with that pastor. They get handed off to find that ministry leader. And so when then the baton is handed off to them. So if they're not stewarding that church well, then they make Mike look like a fool. Mm-hmm. And then if this church is like, we want to do APN, and that gets handed off to Kathy or Brittany on our team, and they don't do their job, they make church engagement look like chumps. Yeah. And if they want to do Don't Go Alone and it gets passed off to Ariel, well, if she doesn't do her job, then it reflects poorly on everybody else. So there has to be high trust because we're all putting ourselves out there.
Absolutely.
I'm saying this is what we're doing. I'm asking people for money to do things. Right. And then if my team's not behind me, like, yeah, you say we're going to do that, that's what we're going to do, then the whole thing starts crumbling and falling. Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of, at least in the nonprofit space, is people get off the rails because they chase the dollars and not the mission. And so they'll bend their mission to whatever it is that so-and-so is funding that year, but it has nothing to do with what even the organization, it doesn't even make sense for the name of the organization, but they were like, well, they're giving money towards it, so that's what we'll go and do. Yeah. And so we're just dogged at that. We trust each other. We're all running the same race and same passions.
There's a saying, Mike Sherrill, I think, shared it with me, people over process.
Yes.
And it's sort of the same thing that you're talking about. It's the mission over the dollars.
Right.
And I love that. That you guys are focused on that. So I want to be respectful of your time. I know we only scheduled a 30-minute conversation, but before I let you go, you have an event coming up this week. It's called Kin Mart. You're still looking for donations for backpacks.
Correct.
So this episode will come out on the Tuesday before. You want to get them in as quickly as possible.
Yes.
We're gonna put your contact information in the show notes. So anybody interested in making a donation or seeing how they can get involved with this event coming up on the 27th of July can reach out to you guys directly. But talk, if you will, real quickly about Kin Mart, how people can get involved, and the purpose of it.
Sure. So Kin Mart is for relative caregivers. So think grandparents raising their grandkids, aunts and uncles taking in nieces and nephews. This is what happens when child welfare goes in. They're like, your kids can't stay here. Who can they go with? And they're like, oh, my mom will take them. My sister will take them. So they, too, got a call on a Tuesday at 3 o'clock. And they're like, hey, will you take your nieces and nephews? And they're like, sure. And they're saying, if you don't, they're going into foster care and you may not see them again. And they're like, absolutely. So they say yes. They take in nieces and nephews. They don't have beds. They don't have clothes. They don't have bedding. They don't have school supplies. A lot of times they don't have all the things that you need to execute Wednesday or Thursday. So this Kin Mart event is for those relative caregivers and their kids. So the reason that our event is so much different is there's a lot of school supply drives, but they get a generic backpack that doesn't last the full year because it's super cheap. They get janky school supplies. And it's not, and everyone knows you got your school supplies for free because you got that backpack that looks like everybody else's backpack, which is not dignifying to the kids. So when the kids and the caregivers come to our event, there's a whole backpack table. They pick out their backpacks. And so for the backpacks, we don't want the 100 pack off of Amazon that the zipper is going to break in 3 months. We want the Nike and the Puma and the Adidas and all the ones that go to TJ Maxx. They're all on sale right now. Get the cool backpacks that you see your other kids have, and those are all out on the table. The kids come in, their faces like light up because they're like, oh my gosh, I get to have the cool backpack. Like it's the first time I've had this. They get the backpack. We give them fake dollars. There's tables all around the student building at Grace Point, and they can pick crayons or colors or binders or notebook or folders or whatever it is that they need for their school year. But they get to spend their little dollars, and there's some dignity and some ownership. And like, I got to pick stuff out. I got to decide I want the blue folder over the purple folder. And then they leave. And like this year, even on Sundays, we're having this great barber is donating his time with 5 of his buddies, and they're coming out and cutting hair for boys.
Oh, nice.
So we don't have anybody for the girls, unfortunately, this year, but we have a barber coming out, and he's going to cut hair for the boys. I know, that would be great. Let's see if we can
change that.
Yeah.
We'll reach out to some people in our networks and see if we can't help you with that.
Yeah. So all that to say, this week, today. If you're hearing this podcast on Tuesday, come by Grace Point. We'll be there till 3:00. My contact info will be in the show notes, and you can reach out to me if you have stuff. But the event is on Saturday and Sunday, so we have to have the school supplies or the backpacks as soon as possible.
Yeah, you guys have been doing this for 5 years now?
5 years now.
That's super exciting.
We serve typically 400 to 600 kids every year.
No kidding. Mm-hmm. Wow. That is awesome and insane at the same time.
And it's like 200 or 300 families. So you do the math. It's like 2, 3, 4 kids per family that are coming in.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Jennifer, thanks so much for coming on the show. Really, really appreciate it. I love hearing about what you guys are doing. My brother-in-law and sister-in-law are foster parents and have been for many years. And so I have a heart for your community, and I love to, I'm hesitant to say this because I feel like I'm going to get a talking to after the show, but I love being an outlier, just kind of supporting as best I can. But you're right. We do need to get more involved. So thanks for that. Thanks for putting that, on me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us. I appreciate it.
Guys, thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of ChingonSA. My name is Luis. We'll see you guys next week. This has been an MIG Studio and Serafina Digital production. Be sure to like and subscribe the show on your favorite streaming platform, and tell a friend about the show by sharing this episode on your Facebook and TikTok. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or someone doing something really cool in San Antonio and want to get your story on our show, email me at luis@myinsuranceGroup.com.